What's going on, YouTube? This is Sinister here, and we have a brand new game that just released a couple days ago called Iron Nest. It's been around for a while, like the demo and whatnot, and people have been talking about it for a few months now. I think Real Civil Engineer did a video on it a few months ago, but it's finally out. This is technically, I feel a little bad because this is technically the demo version right now. I don't have the funds for the full game yet, but I will be getting it the moment that I do. But for the most part, the Iron Nest functions fairly similarly in the demo to the actual game. So we're going to do a little bit of a guide on how to use most of the functions in this big ol' artillery cannon here. And I guess just essentially how to progress through the most basic of missions. So you come down here. This is the protocol board, which is really probably something you only really need to look at once, and it's going to show you the sort of pathway that you need to take to firing, to eventually get to firing on a target. But it doesn't really tell you too much, so we're going to go into it a little in depth. We're going to look at this really quickly. Step one is to get the information from the 2 telegraphs that we have, so I'll show you what that is in a moment. Step 2 is to measure and put all of your targets onto the map. Step 3 is to calculate things called firing cards, or what I call firing cards anyways, which are just little cards that give you all of the elevation and everything that you need to know for firing the shot. Then you have to load the barrels. This tank has this artillery mech has 2 cannons. It has a left cannon and a right cannon. And it's a fairly unique in the sense that the 2 cannons can be angled, they can be elevated at separate elevations, but they have to be pointed in the same directional bearing as each other. So I'll explain what that means later on. So after you load, then you're going to rotate the cannon to the proper bearing. And then you will elevate the cannons to their proper elevation, and then you will fire. That is very dumbed down. So we're going to get into it right now. Your number 1 tool is this clipboard right here. You have a couple different ways that you can view it. If you hold tab, it'll pull it up here on the screen for you to interact with. If you press the caps lock button, it'll lock it into the bottom left of the screen there, which is where it'll be for the majority of the time that we're playing here. So we have started a little bit of like a sandbox mission. Not all the missions will look like this. Typically what will happen is you'll spawn down there in whichever mission you chose, and then you'll come up the staircase here, and then High Command will send you mission information. So in this case, we're doing a endless mission, which is available in the demo, just to allow me to have a couple different scenarios to show you a couple different techniques for triangulation and stuff like that. And so it's not too quick of a mission. We can kind of take as much time as we would like in here because there's not an end to it, and there will be plenty of targets for us to shoot at. So let us start here on step 1. So typically when you start a mission, you come up here, you'll hear these telegraphs ticking away with information. Sometimes it'll be really straightforward. The very first mission, I think, is literally it just gives you a target to put down, or maybe it even puts it on the map for you, and then you just draw a line to it and you shoot at it. And there will be some of that, and I'll show you how to do that, but there will also be some triangulation that'll need to be done occasionally. So that's typically if you have a target of an unknown location, you only have a few bits of information like a bearing and some distances or something. So we will go over that. When you get to your High Command telegraph here and your mission, whatever you're doing, you're going to read it, obviously. So most of this is going to be unimportant. I will say that this little bit is good to know. No counter battery threat has been identified, which means that we're not going to be getting shot at. There's another bit of information here which says that there are underground supply caches. I'm not positive. I want to say most of the supply caches are underground. Underground supply caches require AP ordnance to be destroyed. So I would just say that if there's a supply cache, especially if it is underground. But I'm pretty sure that most of them will be. You're going to use AP for those, so just keep that in your mind. And then we have a few other bits of information. These are the really important bits that you'll pretty much you'll usually get this at the start of a mission. Sometimes you'll have spotters, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll have reference points and stuff, and you'll see we actually have some other stuff over there. But we're gonna copy some of this down. Copy this down, which is our current position, and then we're gonna copy these 3 bits of information down as well because we have to put those on the map. And then we come over here. This is our field intelligence. This should tick away quite a bit throughout the mission as other targets and stuff pop up and as we take shots. So there is some information here. So we have our reference point, which is not a target. This is just a targeting, a static position that'll help us with targeting. They've given us this reference point to put on the map, so we're gonna have to find that. We also have 3 targets here, and in these cases they are ammo caches. So we are going to mark down those 3 targets as well. So now we have all sorts of information on this here clipboard. We have our position, we have our 3 spotters positions, we have the information to find the position of reference point alpha, and then the information to find the positions of the 3 ammo cache targets. So that is essentially step 1. So we have read all of the information. We've acquired all of that information onto our clipboard. And just so you know, if you right click any of this information, it will disappear. It will unmark from the clipboard. So next we're going to measure. I like to, at the start of a mission, I like to set everything up, all of our friendly targets and reference points. I like to set all those up ahead of time. This is your map. It's gonna look a little different occasionally depending on what mission you're doing, and you're gonna have these little markers, essentially quite a few of them. You have numbered enemy markers, numbered friendly markers, and then lettered reference markers here, as well as your iron nest marker to place down. You have a couple different clipboards which just give you information. So this one gives you some information on the symbols, which you can, obviously take a look at. The more you play, the easier it gets. You don't really need to know a lot of that stuff. Same with this. This is just more information on how to do measuring and bearing. So let us get into this here. Obviously, if you've never seen a map grid before, it's laid out A through T in this case, A through T, and then it's numbered 1 through 10. So essentially, if I was to say focus on grid G6, then I would go to G, and I would find the G6. So this is grid square G6, and then there's specific coordinates inside that grid square as well. So if I was to say, let's look at Iron Nest, which is where our position is supposed to be, we're going to take this marker here, and Iron Nest needs to be at A6, grid 9-6. So we're going to go to A, then we're going to find A6, then we need to find 9-6. So it's going to be 9-6 right there. This little point is right where the actual unit is. So right there on A6, 9-6. Try and get as accurate as you can with these little pinpoint markers, because that'll lead to better shots. This little tool, I'm just going to talk about it really quickly so that we don't need to discuss it further, because I will forget about it. It is a yield range calculator for different types of shots. So if you have an AP shot, this is the explosive yield. If you have an HE round, this is the explosive yield. And if you have a HE round, this is the explosive yield. So that's all that does. It's just so that you can sort of range the explosion radius for things, so you don't blow friendlies up and stuff, or if you want to try and hit a bunch of enemies with one shot. So now that we have our Iron Nest position on here, we're going to just get rid of that. And now we are going to put our spotters down. So we have 3 spotters, 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to take these markers. We're going to look for spotter 1 is at A8, 1, 7. So we're going to go to A8, and then we're going to go to 1, 7. It's right there. And then I like to clear things off of my board when I no longer need it because it'll get really hectic otherwise. So now we need our spotter 2 at B671. So we're going to go to B6. We're going to find 7, 1, just right there. And we have spotter 3 at D732. D7. All of our spotters are pretty close together in this case. That won't always be the case, but in this scenario, we're all pretty close together. Now that we've gotten our spotters down, we were also given a reference point alpha. So we're going to go ahead and find that right now. This one's going to be a little bit harder because they don't give us the exact coordinate location. So we have to triangulate the position here. We're given two different types of information. Typically, this will be the case. You'll either get a bearing, or you'll get a distance, or you'll get both, or you'll get 2 of one, so on and so forth. So that's effectively how triangulation is going to be, like the triangulation information is going to be given to you. It's going to look like this. It'll be typically some mixture of a bearing and a distance. So let me explain bearing for anybody that doesn't understand it, and then I will explain distance is pretty straightforward. So we have a couple tools here. I would always use a yellow pen unless you're drawing a firing line from the iron nest, by the way. So just select the yellow pen. I'll explain why later. Let's say that this is you, and this goes for real life, military, anything. The bearing is a real thing that's used by militaries for essentially direction. So if you are in this position and upwards is north, which it typically would be, the bearing, you'll see, is going to be 0, 0. The bearing is 0, 0 if I'm pointed directly north. And it'll be 180 degrees if I'm pointing directly south. So this is essentially just a big, giant 360-degree circle. Whichever direction it is that you're looking at, relative to you and relative to like cardinal directions, is what your bearing is. So if I'm looking off to the northeast here, it's going to be bearing 54, so 54 degrees, so on and so forth. And there's all sorts of degrees of angles here. I explained that really poorly. Effectively, your bearing is just the direction that you're looking in relation to cardinal directions. So north is 0, 0, south is 180, east is 270, and then east is 90, west is 270. My apologies. So that is bearing. So in this case, when we have a reference point alpha, bearing 102 from spotter 1. So we find where spotter 1 is, and then we need our first bit of information. When you're marking a bearing down on the map, since it's just a direction and not a distance, we don't know how far away that target is from spotter 1. So we're going to find the bearing, which in this case is going to be right about here. You see the bearing is about 102 degrees right there, give or take. But instead of just doing like halfway down the map, we're actually going to send it all the way across the map. And we're going to find the 102. So right about there. So now we have this yellow line that goes from spotter 1 all the way across the map. The reason we do that is, again, just because we don't know where along this line spotter 1 is seeing reference point alpha. All we know is that somewhere along that line is where it is. The second bit of information to find out where along this line reference point alpha is a distance from spotter 2 in this case. So right here. The way we measure distance is going to be with this tool here. The reason we do it with this is because there can be multiple points that a spotter can have like a certain distance to. For instance, if we draw this out, if the distance is, let's say, 2.3 6 kilometers from spotter 2, which it's not. It's 13 kilometers from spotter 2. So I know there's only going to be one spot on this line. But let's say that the information we got was that it was 2.6 kilometers from spotter 2. 2.6 kilometers intersects in 2 different spots on this line here, which is why we always need to make sure we use this tool when we're getting a range. Technically, if we wanted to, I could take out my yellow pen and I could draw a line all the way to 13 kilometers, which is right here. It's going to intersect this line essentially right here. And we know that since it has to be along the spotter 1's bearing 102 line, the only spot that is 13 kilometers away from spotter 2 that is also along this line is going to be right here. Because otherwise, if it's over here, it's way off the map, right? So this is where reference point alpha is going to be. But I just want to talk about this line here because, like I said, you can do this. You can find out. You can triangulate using just a line drawn. But in the event that that circle, that range circle, intersects in multiple points along that line, you're not 100% positive which one of those 2 points it is until you get some additional recon information. So always, always, always find your triangulated positions by using the circle to find a range. In this case, we're going to go out to 13 kilometers, and you'll see that this circle only intersects that line in one spot, which is, you know, I knew that ahead of time, but in the event that this went all the way around, we had a much bigger map, or this was shifted farther to the right, then we would potentially have a couple different spots. Bearing only really matters in the direction from the spotter, so it would really need to be a circle like out here that intersects in 2 different spots, because anything on the left side of spotter 1 is not going to be the target, because we know that it's in this direction from the spotter, going in this. This is not like a line as much as it is a vector that's going from one point infinitely onwards in another direction. So now that we have our reference point alpha here, we're going to go ahead and delete those because this won't move. Reference point alpha should stay there. We can also remove it from our little checklist here. Now we have a few other targets to put onto the map. I would ignore the numbers. So you see that ammo cache 1, 2, and 3, obviously those are enemy targets. But I would not try to number them with the numbers because you'll get different types of targets. Sometimes they'll have just target number 1. Sometimes they'll have ammo cache number 1. Sometimes you'll have infantry number 1. So it's not always going to be that every target has its own extremely unique number. You may have multiple target number 1s. So when I use the numbered tokens for the enemies, these are more to count the shots that I'm going to take and not so much to correspond with the enemies. Eventually, some of these missions are going to get so hectic that there will be plenty of enemies on the map and it'll be too hard to keep track. There will be more than 10 enemies and it'll be way too hard to keep track of everything. So for these, I would think of these numbers more as the number of shots that you're going to take in a particular engagement. So in this case, we have 3 targets, so we'll probably use 3 shots. Now, ammo cache number 1 might not actually be the first one that we shoot at. It's going to depend on essentially where our turret is located, like where it's angled. So right now, this little turret direction will actually change as you move the turret. But right now it's pointed sort of northeast, north by northeast-ish. So let's just get a bit of a scenario going. Let's put these random little markers out. These are not where the targets are, but let's pretend that they are. In this case, this turret takes forever to turn. I have to turn this thing using these little little controls here, and it takes a long time to turn. Everything that you do in this game, you want it to be quick. You don't want to take a long time because people are shooting at you. It's war. You essentially want to get all of your shots out as quick as possible. So that being said, it would be really dumb for me to shoot at this target, then turn my turret and shoot at this target, and then turn my turret all the way around and shoot at this target. That doesn't make any sense from a engagement efficiency perspective. So what I want to do is see how I'm going to start engaging these targets in this engagement. And I know that since I have 3 targets initially, that I will probably have more, but since I have 3 targets initially and my turret is pointed north of this target here, that I'm going to sweep down. I'm going to sweep down these targets with my turret. That way I'm saving time in rotation. So the first one that I would shoot at would be this one. The second one that I would shoot at would be this one. And the third one would be this one. So that's why I'm saying not to focus too much on the actual number, because ammo cache 1 could be this one, or it could be this one. It doesn't really matter what high command designates the number as much as what you designate your shot like coordination to be. So that's just something to keep in mind. These numbers for now are going to be more in terms of like the shots or the shot order that I'm going to take, and not so much the actual enemies. So let us clean this up, and we will start to put these on the board here. So ammo cache 1 is at bearing 277 from reference point alpha and bearing 102 from spotter number 3. So here's reference point alpha. We're going to draw a line with the bearing that extends all the way through. And we just want that bearing to be about 277. So bearing 277 from reference point alpha. Now we need another bearing, a bearing of 102 from spotter number 3. So here's spotter number 3. And then a bearing of 102. We're just going to go all the way through. We're going to find that bearing of 102. Okay. So now we have a couple different bearings. So this is a different form of triangulation, right? So instead of having a bearing and a distance, we have 2 bearings, which ironically is a little bit easier. So you see in this case, we have a bearing going this way from spotter 3 and a bearing going this way from reference point alpha, and they intermingle right here. So that is where our first target is going to be. We're just going to put a target marker down. It doesn't matter which number. We're just going to put any of them down. So that'll be number 1. And then since we have that marked, we'll delete these 2 markers, as well as deleting the information for ammo cache 1 off of our clipboard there. Now we have ammo cache 2. That's the bearing 272 from reference point alpha. So we'll go here. Bearing 272. It's going to be a little bit more this way. 272. Okay. 272, and then a distance of 8.11 kilometers from spotter 1. So again, we're going to take our little circle tool here, and we're going to drag out a circle from spotter 1 of a distance of 8.11 kilometers. There we go. You'll see this circle is pretty big, and along the reference point, it only intersects one spot. But you'll see that since the bearing from reference point alpha is going west, if this map extended more west, like I was talking about before, this circle would also, and it would intersect along that point at a different spot. So the only reason I know that this is where the enemy is specifically and not all the way over here is just because this is off the map. But I want to emphasize, because there will be scenarios in which you'll have 2 different positions along this circle, and you will have to take that into consideration about which one of those is the actual target. So in this case, we know that that's where it is. So we're gonna go ahead and delete those. And now we have ammo cache 3. So that is a bearing of 77 and a distance of 8.58 kilometers from ammo cache 2. So this is where like the compounding errors could really mess you up. If you mess up the placement of spotters, if you mess up the placement of a reference point, if you mess up the placement of a potential enemy location, sometimes high command gives you positions that are based off of previously ascertained information that you yourself have put on the board. So make sure that you're doing everything accurately, because this could throw this off if I was inaccurate. So we're going to go ahead and take out our yellow pencil here for measuring. To find that spot, and then we're going to draw a bearing 77, just right about there. All right, and then just for what we could have done is we could have just drawn that out and matched the distance of 8.58 kilometers as well. And sometimes I do that, but it's also just a big pain in the butt to do that. So a good thing to do is just to use the circle tool, even when it's from the same target, just so that it's a little easier. You're not controlling two different things at once. And now we have that particular location there. So we're going to grab our third ammo cache marker. We're going to put it right where those two intersect, and then we will delete these. Okay, so now we have our targets. But I want to give you an example of what I was talking about before. So you see they're almost all going to be to the east of our turret. If I draw these lines out to these targets, it'll make it a little easier to see which of these is actually going to be our first shot. So you see our turret right now is angled north of the first target. So if we were to shoot at any three of these targets, the quickest one to line up with would be target number 3. So what we're actually going to do is, instead of this being number 1 here, we're going to move this over here, because this is going to be our first shot that we're going to take. And then this is going to be our second. So we'll flip these around here, because the next shot after that, that'll be the quickest to rotate our turret for, will be this one. So that'll be our second shot. And then this will be our third shot, right? So that is essentially, these are the 3 shots that we're going to be taking at the enemies initially. After we take those 3 shots, we're going to take a pause, look at the high command telegram thing, and then see if there's additional targets. But for right now, we are going to take out our red pen, and we are going to draw us some firing lines. So once you have your targets, we are going to go into the next step. So obviously we have done step number 2, which is measure, right? Now we need to go into step 3, which is calculate. So we are going to take our firing lines here. Remember, this is last step on the map. When you take your red marker and you draw these firing lines out, you'll notice that it keeps a bearing and a distance. That is very important, because you're going to need that information. So in this case, we're going to do 3 shots. That was our first one. This is our second one. And then this is our third one. Okay. We're going to keep those lines on there until we do the shots, just because it'll be good for our reference. And we're not going to need to look at this too much anyways. But you see we have our 3 bearing and distance pairs for our 3 shots that we're going to take. Now, we only have 2 barrels, which means that one of these barrels is going to need to be reloaded in between shots. I like to shoot the left barrel first, then the right barrel, then the left barrel again. So you'll notice that our magazines are completely empty right now. We already know the types of ammo and how many shots we're going to need here because we have our 3 targets. We know what types of target they are, so we know what type of ammunition we need to use. So we need 3 AP shells because they are supply points and they're underground, and there's 3 of them. So what we're going to do is walk over to the requisition terminal. You have these requisition credits. You get some of them at the start of the match, and then you will also collect more as you go on and kill certain high priority targets. We're going to take the AP shell card and bring it over here to the card slot. So, okay, that's, I was wondering if you could actually specifically interact with that. You cannot. So you have a couple options. We have the left magazine or the right magazine. We know the left magazine needs 2 AP shells because it's going to fire twice in this engagement. And we know the right magazine needs 1 AP shell. It's only firing the one time. So here is our AP shell on our right side, and then our AP shells on our left side magazine. So now that we have those, that is essentially those are ready to be loaded. We're not going to do that yet, though. We're going to follow the protocol. So next, we're going to take our bits of information that we have on our clipboard here, and we are going to create our range cards or firing cards. So the step 1 is to look at this little bit of information here. So we need this distance, 15.21 kilometers. This first shot is going to be 15.21 kilometers away. And when you get the distance, in fact, I would actually say do distance, shell type. So in this case, it's going to be AP. And then the bearing. So for this shot here, this is 1 shot, this is 1 shot, and this is 1 shot, right? So we're focusing on this one right now. So we need 85.5 degrees. 85.5 degrees. Now there's a few other things. Once you have the distance, the shell type, and the bearing, you have to select an amount of powder charges. If the number is red, that means that that amount of charges is not sufficient for the shot. For most cases, I would say keep it on the lowest powder charge amount unless you need a shell to get somewhere much quicker. In which case you can increase the powder charge amount and it'll have a lower angled trajectory and reach its target faster. But we're gonna, just for efficiency, we're not taking any counter battery fire. We're just gonna leave it on 4, which is the minimum amount of charges for this particular shot. We're going to select the type of target that it is. In this case, it's going to be an underground bunker, which is that one right there. And just everything looks correct on here. So we're going to pull this lever, and it now has given us a range card or a firing card, whatever you want to call it, shot card. This is for our first shot. So now we're going to do the rest for these other 2. So we'll delete this one. We don't need that anymore to just make things confusing. Now we're focusing on the second one. So we're going to dial this all the way back down to 4.76 kilometers. .76. We're going to keep that as an AP shell. The target is 89 degrees. It is still an underground bunker, and then we only need 1 powder charge for this one because it's much closer, only 5 kilometers away. All right, and there we go. So we've now been given our second firing card here, which is our second shot. This will be the right barrel. And then we're going to do that one more time. This goes up to 6.85. And this goes up to 2. This here, I would get into the habit of changing your bearing first, although it shouldn't affect the amount of powder charges that you need, but it could in future. I'm not sure if they're going to change things or not, but there we go. And that is our third shot. So everything that we do, like I said, you want to do quickly, but I'm doing it slow so that you can see it makes sense. So just keep in mind that I want to, when I let this first shot go, I want to do all of these shots as quickly as I possibly can. So I don't want to waste time in between here. So we're going to talk about essentially, so that's why the targeting is done the way it is to save time between turret rotating. And then we're also going to talk about the individual turret elevation or gun elevation. So we have two guns, but they can be elevated separately. And that is very good for us because that means that what we can do is we can line the turret up with the first shot, but before we even shoot the first shot, we can adjust the first two shots elevation. So I'll show you what that means in just a moment here when we go to our next step. So we've done the calculating, right? Now we need to do our loading. Loading is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So we know that we're going to need AP only right now, so we're not going to be shooting any other shells, so we don't need to worry about selecting one. We're just going to shove the one in that's selected, which is right here. Press that. Put it in. We're also going to do that over here for this one. Okay. Now both of the shells are loaded. Now this first shot on our left barrel, you see it needs 4 charges, so we're going to go ahead and load in 4 powder charges. And then set that up there. And then this one over here, we only need 1 powder charge. So we'll just do 1. And then send that one in. Oh. All right. Awesome. Now both of these barrels are loaded with their proper powder charge load and their proper ammunition. So the next thing we're going to do is worry about the elevation. Just like this system for turning it, there is a estimated like quick adjustment method, and then there is a fine-tuning adjustment method, and that's for both of them, so both barrels. So we're going to look at the elevation for the first shot, which is 45.63. And for the elevation, there's markers on the handle. You just bring it up to roughly where it needs to be. So in this case, we're going to bring it up to about 45 for this barrel. The second one needs to be elevated to 57.12. So we're going to bring that one up a little higher. All right. So this one, you see we've gotten this to 44.75. So we're just going to dial it in to 45.63. There we go. And then the right gun elevation, that needs to be at 57.12. We're going to dial that in a little bit. .12, like so. So these are our first 2 shots elevation. You can see the cannons elevated, but you'll notice that we're actually not rotated to the proper orientation, because remember, we need the orientation to be 85.5 for this first shot. So we are going to find the I'm actually going to show you this because this is a little different. The way that this works is if I have this to the right or to the left of that red marker down there, then it will just constantly move. So it's not like this one where it'll go to a specific degree. This is more like it'll just move until it's no longer, you know, off of the center there. So we're gonna go until this is about 89 degrees. Oh, whoops, it's 89 flat. Okay. 89 degrees flat. So my apologies. We need to be at 85.5. I don't know what I'm thinking. See, even for somebody that's been playing this for a fat minute, it's still not the most intuitive right away. So now we're lined up for our first shot and we're elevated for our second one. So this console pops up. This is essentially your double, triple check console to make sure everything's accurate. Shows you information for the left gun, the right gun, and then also the full turret rotation right now, which should line up with this. So what we're going to do is, let me see if it'll let me, don't actually know. No, you can't. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to line these up in the order in which they're going to be done. And then we're going to go top down. So this first shot, fire mission confirmed, is really just the overall mission. So we know that we're firing on a bunker. We're going to use AP. We know that most of this stuff should be accurate. Shell type confirmed. We know for a fact that AP is loaded. Bearing confirmed. So the bearing at 85.5 for this first shot, which is right here. So that is confirmed. Ranging is going to be the elevation. We know that this barrel is elevated properly, which you can see it right there, 45.63. The second barrel is elevated to that second shot already, so that's good as well. Ranging confirmed. Now we're going to arm the gun. You have the left and the right arming. We're going to arm the left only for now. And then once I pull this, I'm going to adjust the angle for this second shot right away. So now we need to go to 89 degrees. Everything else should be accurate already. 57.12 degrees. Arm the right one. And fire that shot. Now what you're going to notice is along these shots, these little robot arms are going to track your round as they come in. Okay. This is really good information, or this is like a really good experience here, because this allows me to show you guys a little bit more about the reconnaissance aspect of this. I was actually hoping that they would pull something like this. So this information that we got was not necessarily incorrect. We got the information for this particular shot here, and it didn't quite work out, right? The bunker is actually 0.91 kilometers to the east by southeast a little bit, like over here. That's going to happen sometimes. Information you get is going to be inaccurate occasionally, but you'll notice that when we took these shots and the shots landed, we actually got a small strip of reconnaissance photos here. I am not, again, the game kind of just came out and I'm not super 100% familiar, but I'm fairly positive that photographic information is almost always going to trump initial intelligence. So when I take a photo here, when I land a shot and our recon plane goes and takes a photo, and you can see all of these positions of these different targets, including the high priority bunker target, which it's giving me a correction for, these should be accurate photos. All of these photos here, the targets, I believe they can move, but for the most part, they're static elements, and the photos are going to be more accurate. So sometimes you're going to miss, and this is what a correction looks like. It shows you the angle that you need to draw a correction to, and then from the point, you would just draw out essentially the distance of about 0.91, which you're going to see that's right there. It's already marked here, which, I mean, I guess sometimes it'll be easy if you actually take a picture of it, but if this was all the way over here and I needed to adjust like a few kilometers, I might not be able to see it. So photo intelligence is very useful. You get those every time you land a shot. You'll see when we look over here that we actually did take out this target. So we shot these two shots. So this one and this one, right? those are both finished. We have one more shot technically for our left side cannon here, and I am going to actually line us up for that shot right now. I'm gonna just walk it through as if I were doing it myself. 2 charges, because that's what the card calls for. I'm gonna send that in. This has to re-elevate, and I can't, it does it automatically, so I'm gonna focus on the turret rotation, which needs to be 96.7. And you'll see that the turret is automatically going to rotate. We want this to elevate. We want this to be a little lower there because we only need to go to 41.1. .1. All right. We're going to go through everything here. Fire mission confirmed. It's an AP shell with 2 charges. We're attacking an ammo depot. That's good. It's an AP shell. The bearing 96.7, which is what it's supposed to be. The elevation is correct, 41.1. The gun is armed. And there we go. And that is our 3rd shot. So you're going to see here, the little robot arm should track. Every time I shoot a round, by the way, I like to move the little markers off of the target. That not only moves the robot arm away from it, but it will also allow you to see things a little bit easier. There we go. Okay, so that one was another hit. So we hit 2 of our shots and we missed one of them because of faulty intelligence. That's okay. So we'll just move this little marker out of the way, and we're gonna go over essentially what we did here really quickly. And I'll explain some of this stuff here. So when we take a shot, you get the strip of intelligence, and you get a few little bits of information here. If you see this little black marker over an enemy unit or a friendly unit, that means that they're destroyed. So this was close enough to destroy that bunker there. So it put a little kill token on it. You don't necessarily need these on there. It does technically mark it when it's destroyed, but having a kill token there is sometimes nice. You have the ability to reset all the kill tokens if you wanted to, and in the actual game, I believe you can just put kill tokens on the board if you wanted to. But you'll notice that all the ones that were hit, we did nail them. So they got pretty busted up there. This one though, we missed. We missed this shot. After we do these shots, I like to clear up the firing lines. And I like to move off all of those markers, obviously with the exception of any of the friendly markers or reference points. We also shot these rounds, so we're just gonna go ahead and delete these cards. So we don't need those anymore. We shot all 3 of the rounds that we meant to shoot. We hit 2 of our targets. There's one more target. Well, I mean, obviously you see there's like a bunch of targets. So we're going to do, I think, one more little thing here. But I'm going to show you some neat stuff. So you'll see here, we've gotten some additional information. You'll see we've got some targets spotted, an additional supply cache spotted, and a few other things from our spotters, and they also give you information. The supply cache 6 is spotted, but it's going to give you a bearing from spotter 1 and a bearing from spotter 3. So you do still need to mark out these targets. Oh, here's some more. And this is an endless mission, so this will just keep going for the most part. But we'll wrap this up by showing you one additional thing with the requisition terminal here. And it is essentially going to be, well, we will get ourselves an HCHE shell. We're going to get ourselves a scout plane. And probably an HE shell. So we're going to think about this. The first thing that we're going to do is get a little bit more intel. You can get these photographs by just taking shots like we did, but you can also manually acquire photographs by using scout planes. So we have a scout plane here. It's going to cost us quite a bit of requisition credits, but that's okay. And now we need to put in a starting grid and then a bearing direction that we want it to fly in. So in this case, the information that we don't really have, we know that we kind of want this little area. This is sort of where a lot of the targets are, but we're missing sort of this part here and sort of this bottom part here. So maybe just for the sake of confirming that these targets are where they are, we will start the plane in H3 and we'll have it just fly directly north and take a strip of photos directly north. So we're going to set this to H3. And then the bearing is already set to north 0, 0, so it's going to fly directly north. Now we're going to stamp this card. And you'll see here that it's sending out the recon photo strip right now. So we come over here, and here is the photo strip. So we did confirm that some of these other positions are around here, as well as this other bunker and another bunker down here. So what we could do, since these are pretty high priority targets, is we could either fire upon these bunkers, or we could shoot a big ol' HCHE shell right in the center of these here. In fact, we are going to do that. So our first shot, we are angled kind of north here. We're going to try and take out probably this bunker that we should have taken out before. And since we have photo evidence where that one is, we know that we can just shoot at that one right there. And then the second one, we're going to bring out this little ranging circle here, because now we're dealing with a yield and we want to encompass as many of these units in this yield as possible. So right about, I would say right about here, just because I want to be as far away from that friendly unit as possible. I don't want to blow those friendly units up. So about 5-8 right here is where that second shot is going to be. So we're going to swing in here. And now we're going to draw out our firing lines. So take our red pen here. So our first shot needs to be an AP shot because it's shooting at a bunker. And our second shot is an HCHE shot, which is going to be right about there. So we're just going to make sure here we don't have any more rounds. So we're going to requisition our rounds. The first shot is an AP. That'll be our left magazine. And the second shot is an HCHE in our right magazine. Okay, now we have those rounds there. Now we're going to calculate our two range cards. So the first one is a distance of 5.66 and a bearing of 91.1. It is indeed an underground bunker using AP with 2 charges. So that is our first shot card. Now we're going to create our second one. So we'll delete this. I'm going to go to 5.93. The bearing is 108.1. And this one we're just going to set to that for multiple targets. And change this to HCHE. And there we go. And that is our second shot. So now we're going to go ahead and load these in just like we did before. AP in our left barrel, HCHE on our right barrel. Do 2 charges on the left, 2 charges on the right. Send that in. Send that in. And we're going to angle to our first shot here, which is going to be 91.1. 91.1. Once these barrels lock into place, they should start elevating on their own. But we need this to be way lower, right about there, probably 34. And this, right about there. Just a rough estimate, and then we can figure those out in a moment. 33.96 for the left. And then 35.58. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and confirm. First one, AP shell with 2 charges against a supply cache bearing 91.1. 33.96 degree elevation. The gun is armed. We're going to fire. And now immediately adjust to 108.1 degrees for our second shot. Okay. Sometimes things like this will happen, like the little valves will open up. You want to make sure you close those. So our first shot landed. Took it out. And here's our second shot. We should see a nice effect here on target. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. Well, let us clean this board up just a tiny bit. We'll do a quick little glance over here and you'll see. So we finished off those shots to clear our board up here. And then we will look at this. So we nailed that bunker. We got photographic evidence of where it was and nailed it. And then you can see our HE charge here just absolutely obliterated these 2 infantry and the fire control director here. That is effectively the basics of Iron Nest. There is going to be, I'm sure, more functionality and stuff that slowly comes out. All of these different shots and whatnot, I'm sure, are available in the full game. I'm going to be purchasing that very, very soon because I love this game. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask them in the comments, and I should be able to help out as much as I can. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time. Adios.